Okay, we're opening up the Cure conversation now with the professors of
Cure.
the Cure.
Why are we talking about The Cure? Well, because it is speculated, according to Rate Your Music, that their new album, Songs for a Lost World, will be released on October 7th. I almost said in 3 days. Yeah. But apparently, so I've been trying to follow the news on this. I guess they have 3 albums in the works.
Yeah.
So Robert Smith said, we will be releasing a new album. I got fed up of saying this now. That doesn't really sound like him. So don't ask him about the new record. He says, it will be worth the wait. I think it's the best thing we've done, but then I would say that. What? Oh, but then I would say that. I'm not doing an Oasis when I say that. It's the best fucking album. A lot of the songs are difficult to sing, and that's why it's taken me a while.
All right, top 5 albums. Are we going into it? Or are you prefacing it more?
Last thing I have to say. Mm-hmm. He said it was going to be closer to Disintegration as opposed to The Head on the Door. We can go into these albums now. Do we want to start with honorable mentions?
No, go ahead. You do your honorable mentions.
Only one I have is their first album, which I think you had in the long list that you sent me. So I guess you'd consider that an honorable mention.
Yeah, I mean, I did put like 10 of their, or like 9 of their first like 12 albums.
Yeah. What do I have to say about this? Well, I like it because it doesn't sound like any of their other stuff. So I think they don't like, well, Robert Smith doesn't really like that album because it didn't sound like he had like refined his sound. But I actually like a lot of bands' first albums because you can kind of like hear how they're trying to figure stuff out. And I like just the mix of it kind of sounds like 1950s like rock, but then there's kind of like a punk sound to it as well. So I don't know, like Grinding Halt, that's one of my favorite Cure songs. And what else?
Did you say the title or Three Imaginary Boys?
Yeah. Okay. Three Imaginary Boys Be Like.
What track did you say was one of your favorites?
Grinding Halt.
So I'll do a reverse order here. Number 5, I have Disintegration. I think Love Song is probably the most known song on that album.
The professor said that Lullaby, I think, was...
well, that's the other song I wrote down. Those are my 2 favorite songs.
Well, that was a risky song, according to the professor. He said that the studios
We're just stealing this guy's research now. I should have watched the video. We should just regurgitate what he said.
That's true. I think he said that the studio didn't like that song, but they put it on anyway, and then it was successful. But that's not the first time that's happened. The first time that happened was with another album I'll talk about later.
Number 4. Let me fly through this list.
Yes, you're right. Sorry.
Wish. That's sort of the more of the pop sounding album. They started to get commercial success like in the 80s, like mid 80s into the late 80s. I feel like Disintegration was pretty like mainstream popular, but Wish had a lot more of a pop sound. So obviously Friday I'm in Love's probably their most well-known song.
Yeah, let me look it up on Spotify. I'm pretty sure it is, though.
Gotta be. I feel like it was just in a lot of movies, like early 90s movies. Mm-hmm. So that's a great song. I like High.
Boys Don't Cry, number 1. Friday I'm in Love, number 2.
So those are 2 of my favorite Cure songs. Number 3, 17 Seconds. My 2 favorite tracks on there are 3 and A Forest. 2, Faith. I like All Cats Are Gray and Primary. And number 1, The Head on the Door is my favorite. That was probably their first like album into commercial success. That was in 1985. Close to Me is my favorite. It's like one of their probably top 5 songs for sure. Mm-hmm. Close to Me is my favorite. I love the music video for that song. And I think between The Head on the Door, which is my number 1, and Faith, which is number 2, Faith is probably like a more cohesive album. There's 8 tracks on it. I like it more like, but I think my favorite parts of The Head on the Door are like higher than Faith. Yeah. So they're really like 1A and 1B. So anyway, go ahead.
It's very interesting. We only have one album different. So I don't have Wish in my top 5. I listened to it for the first time last week or over the weekend. And I liked it. I feel like I think when they started with like, it was the top and then Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. It reminded me a lot of those 2 albums, which are a lot longer. And I enjoy those albums, but they're just like not my top 5 favorite. But I did like Wish. I actually honestly thought that I wasn't going to like it because of Friday I'm in Love. I used to not really like that song, but over time, it's definitely grown on me. So I would say that it is one of the Cure songs I've listened to. Maybe like, I don't know what it'd be in my top of. But number 5, I have Pornography. I just really like the drums on that album, and it is a very, very dark album. And I think like the last track is kind of hard to listen to just because it's like just noise as opposed to like an actual song. But I really do like the album a lot. The drums are awesome. And Short Term Effect is probably my favorite Cure song of all time. And number 4, I have Faith. And from what I had found from the professor, no, I'm just kidding, from Wikipedia, Faith was essentially what they wanted 17 Seconds to be, because they didn't have a whole lot of money when they were recording 17 Seconds, and the album stopped with the track, I think it was called The Final Sound. This track was a little over a minute. It was supposed to be 10, 12 minutes long, but they just ran out of tape. So they just pretty much had to submit what they had as the album. So Faith was kind of their way of just kind of refining what they originally intended. I really do like Faith a lot. The first time I listened to it, I thought it was my least favorite Cure album, and I thought it was super boring, but it has grown on me. The one thing I don't like about it is that I feel like with 17 Seconds, the songs blend together very well, but Faith, it's like, here's the slow song, now here's the fast song, now here's the slow song, now here's the fast song. Mm-hmm. And so noticing that kind of takes away from the album a little bit, but it's still one of my favorites. Number 3, I have Disintegration, which is the first Cure album that I listened to. And actually, when I first listened to it, I was like, this band isn't really, maybe someday I'll come back and listen to them. But for right now, like I appreciate it for what it is. I think still gave it a 4.5. And yeah, I just love just like the atmosphere that it created. I feel like from their second album to Disintegration, they had just been building up to creating like a really nice, I guess, wall of sound, but not in the Phil Spector way. It was like their own way of creating it. Because usually when you think wall of sound, it's like only the Phil Spector, like the bells and, but they kind of like made their own version of it. Number 2, Head on the Door. I just really love that album. And I don't actually have a whole lot to say about it. I just listen to it a lot and I love it. Now, number 1. 17 Seconds is my favorite album of theirs. So I listened to Disintegration, already said what I thought about it. And then whenever Mexican Summer was taking Ariel Pink's early albums and they were remastering them and releasing them in waves, every album came with like a little printout with like a long description of each album and like what was going on during the time and like reviews and whatnot. So when the Doldrums came out, it was talking about how this album was very similar to The Cure's song A Forest. So I thought, okay, I'll listen to that album and, maybe this band will click for me. And for whatever reason, this is like an album that I can just like play and just like have on a loop. And I never get tired of it. And it is a very minimal sounding album, but I also really like that because home recorded music is probably my favorite genre of music. And so it just reminded me a lot of that. And I don't know. I just feel like it's simple enough to where like the dark mood is like, it's not like scary or like unpleasant. It's just kind of like there, like a foggy day. So
yeah, I think that's something else. Just like as a broader conversation, I think the Cure has always just like created a great atmosphere. Robert Smith's always done that, and like the early ones, it's it's that gothic like dark rock sound.
Oh, I hate that. Don't call me gothic.
I won't call you gothic, but it eventually evolves into the pop music. So I think the first thing I just remember Friday I'm in Love. It just felt like it was that was just a song you would hear, like on the radio. Like I didn't even know other Cure songs from like the radio. So it was whenever I started like listening to Wish that I went back and started like from the beginning and listened to all of their stuff. And so, yeah.
For 17 Seconds, I guess. So, oh geez, I meant to look up the pronunciation for this. This is going to be so embarrassing.
We'll do it.
So after their first album, they were touring with, is it Suey and the Banshees? Sue and the Banshees?
That's Susie and the Banshees.
Susie and the Banshees.
Yeah.
He toured with them, and I guess their guitar player quit, and so he filled in. So he would pretty much play super, super long shows, play with The Cure. They opened up. Then he'd play with the Banshees, and that's where he learned to kind of love like the sound that The Cure eventually followed. Like that's why 17 Seconds sounds so different from Three Imaginary Boys, and then it just kind of continues in that path. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And yeah, I don't know. I don't have much else to say. A Forest is the other example where that was going to be the single that they released, and it was originally also supposed to be much longer. And the studio said this song sucks, no one's going to like it, but that became their first number one hit that they had. Well, Boys Don't Cry was probably their first number one hit, but it became a hit. I think it will be interesting to hear the new album that comes out. I guess all three of them, technically. Do you think that old A-word, N-words are capable of creating great music that they were known for when they were young? Do you have any examples of, I guess, like...
Oh, I just got what you meant. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the last few albums haven't been as good, but it's been forever.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see when the last album came out.
I think it came out in 2008. It's called 413.
I don't know. I mean, it just depends how long he's been working on it and stuff. And I don't know. Like, I don't know if you get out of touch with sort of your vision for things, because most people peak creatively when they're like in their 20s.
Yeah.
And they're like in their maybe have like learned and like have more skills in their 30s. So it's like, is he over the hill? I don't know.
And I forgot to say this thing about Disintegration. So that came out in 89. So Robert Smith was 29 because he believed that's what he believed, that once he turned 30, whatever it is with the current culture, that he would no longer be a part of it. He would be too old for it. So he knew, like, he wanted Disintegration to be like his perfect album because he thought he'd never create something as good as that again. So I definitely think that Disintegration is a step up above a lot of their work, but
yeah, to compare it
music.
to compare it to Disintegration specifically would mean that he probably remembers saying that. Or did he say that in the interview? He said that like, okay.
Yeah. So, but I also think of like, R. Stevie Moore and like Cleaners from Venus. I wonder how much of that, I don't know. Cause like, yes, on one end, I think it is absolutely true that yes, when you're younger, your scope of the world, your view of the world is valuable to pretty much everyone older than you, because it's going to remind older people of when they were younger, like that magical time of when they were younger. So yes, when you're older and you're out of touch, you can't really recreate that. And I think that a lot of like studios, like studio executives who like make like modern pop songs, try to take old people and make them seem young. So I think that's why we often think that. But then I think of like R. Stevie Moore and yeah, like I said, Cleaners from Venus, where they didn't really have big record executives. And because they did a lot of their music at home, they were in a situation where they had to create albums at a rate much higher than regular musicians. So since they only had their immediate environment, that was their home to kind of create music in, it's like they have always kind of been like honest, and I don't know. They never try to sound young. You don't really get that sound, because like R. Stevie Moore is like 60, but his last few albums he released before he retired, I really liked and I really enjoyed them.
I can't wait till the episode we talk about R. Stevie Moore.
I know, we review all 400 of his albums and Cleaners from Venus. We'll have to talk about that once his documentary is like available on streaming services. We're gonna have to watch it and talk about it. And you showed me him, and
I showed you R. Stevie Moore.
You showed me Cleaners from Venus.
Oh,
and
true.
He's like one of my favorite